Welcome to the AI for Career Success video overview by Curt Robbins. We're experts at AI coaching and helping professionals like you and your employees upskill in AI. Our analysis today is based on an article titled, "CEOs Blame AI for Layoffs, but the Benchmarks Might Be Lying Too." It was written by Paco Valdez and published in Paco's AI Lab on March 23, 2026.
So, let's begin with a rather puzzling situation we're seeing in the business world today. On one hand, you have CEOs announcing major layoffs and pointing to AI as the reason. But on the other hand, many of these same companies are reporting record profits and valuations. It's a real contradiction. And as the source article points out, this narrative can be a little convenient. Often these companies simply overhired, and now AI is serving as a useful justification for making corrections. But this reliance on the idea of AI's rapid progress brings up a really crucial question.
If these massive business decisions are being made based on how quickly AI is improving, how do we actually measure that improvement? Well, the answer comes down to a system of standardized tests known as benchmarks. And as we'll explore, the reliability of those benchmarks is now facing some serious questions.
So, to really understand what's going on, we first need to look at the measurement tools themselves. Essentially, benchmarks for large language models, or LLMs, are standardized exams. They're designed to score and rank the capabilities of different AI systems. One of the most famous benchmarks is the MLLU. You can think of it as a kind of IQ test for an AI. It includes almost 16,000 multiple-choice questions that span 57 different academic subjects, all designed to test the model's general knowledge.
Then, for more practical skills, you have something like Human Eval. This benchmark is all about coding. It gives an AI 164 Python programming problems and tests whether the code it generates actually works and passes a set of test cases.
And beyond these tests, there's the chatbot arena. This platform acts as the industry's unofficial scoreboard. It puts two anonymous AI models head-to-head and has humans vote on which one gives a better response. But it's really important to remember here that preference and actual capability aren't always the same thing. And this brings us right to the central problem. There's a growing amount of research suggesting that the scores coming out of these benchmarks are often far less meaningful than they seem. They might be painting a distorted picture of how much AI is actually advancing.
The article highlights three main ways that these benchmarks can be, well, broken. They are data contamination, prompt sensitivity, and cherry-picking of results.
Let's start with data contamination. This is a really fundamental flaw. Imagine if a student got a copy of the final exam to study from. That's essentially what happens here. One study found that over half the test questions from key benchmarks were actually inside one of Meta's training datasets. So the model isn't really reasoning, it's just recalling answers it's already seen.
The second issue is prompt sensitivity. This means a model's performance can change wildly based on tiny, almost irrelevant changes in how a question is phrased or formatted. So the score might have more to do with the wording of the test than the model's actual intelligence. And the effect here can be staggering. One study found that just changing things like spacing or the style of bullet points in a prompt could change a model's performance by as much as 76 accuracy points on the exact same question.
And finally, there's the issue of cherry-picking. Companies will often test dozens of different internal versions of a model. Meta, for example, tested 27 versions of Llama 4. But then, they only published the single highest score they achieved. This doesn't really give you an accurate picture of the model's typical performance.
When you combine all these issues, you get a much deeper problem that researchers have started calling the benchmark illusion. And this is the idea that a model can get a great score on a test, but that high grade doesn't actually translate into reliable skill in the real world.
This chart from a recent paper illustrates the point perfectly. What you're looking at are several AI models that all got nearly identical scores on a tough benchmark called MMLU Pro. You'd think they'd be interchangeable, right? But when they were given a new, real-world scientific task, their results were all over the place, differing by more than 80%. So equal scores clearly do not mean equal capabilities.
This quote from Martin Sapp at Carnegie Mellon sums it up nicely. Today's benchmarks are often misaligned with how people actually use AI. They're testing for trivia-like knowledge, not the complex, nuanced problem-solving we need in real life. The leaderboard tells one story, but the user experience often tells a very different one.
So given that we can't fully trust these metrics, what's the right path forward? What should business leaders and professionals do when they're navigating this complex AI landscape?
Well, the key takeaway is to shift our focus from the scoreboard to the real world. First, we need to scrutinize any claims based on benchmarks. Second, we should focus on applying the incredibly powerful AI we already have to our actual workflows. And third, we have to prioritize proven, real-world capability over some flashy number on a leaderboard. You know, the opportunity to transform businesses with AI is absolutely real, but that opportunity doesn't depend on a narrative of models doubling their power every 6 months. A much more durable strategy is to build on the incredibly useful AI we have today rather than chasing rankings that might just be an illusion. And that leaves us with a final, critical question for you to reflect on. In your own organization, is your AI strategy being built on demonstrated real-world capability, or is it being swayed by the allure of just a high score? Thank you for watching. We encourage you to subscribe to the AI for Career Success YouTube channel. And please, do like, comment, and share this overview. It really helps us reach a wider audience of professionals.
This is where we teach you AI and help you get smarter than your competition. If you find these videos valuable, please use the QR code you saw at the beginning of the video to buy us a coffee or to hire us to coach you or your employees in AI.